Welcome back to the CROSSFIRE show on Star Times Channel 196 Cool TV. And we're discussing the fuss about Radio Biafra. It's time for us to move on to a major topic of discussion today. And we have Mr. Yemi Olakitan, investigative journalist, to help us on this subject. Mr. Yemi Olakitan, there's been a call for secession by the band Radio Biafra, and it's quite surprising how the illegal Radio Biafra, reportedly operated by Nnamdi Kanu, said to be a resident of the United Kingdom, it's increasingly becoming a source of serious concern because it's inciting, it's hate broadcast, and there's been a back and forth between the NBC and the Radio Biafra. They said, oh, they've jammed their signals, they're no longer on air. And we have conflicting reports. People say, oh, we could still hear them, and all of that. Why this time? Why the agitation? And how do we prevent such future occurrences of pirate stations? Because if one springs up in Biafra, another could come up in any part of the country.
And then they could have resultant effects of war, another civil war. So that's all of that we need to try and prevent now. Yeah. But then, what's your take on it all?
You see, the issue of Biafra is a very, very sensitive issue, particularly with the Igbo-speaking Igbo people of Nigeria. You know, that's a very important, tribe, one of the major tribes of Nigeria is the Igbo people. And Biafra, I see, anytime you discuss Biafra, you see a lot of the Igbo people are very, very emotional about it.
Don't you think they need to be emotional about it?
Yes. So
because of some of the antecedents they faced during the war.
Exactly. You see, when you now see people, and when you read history, if you read the book by Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, Half of a Yellow Sun, or you read There Was a Country by Professor Chinua Achebe, you read about a lot of atrocities that were committed against the Igbo during the Biafra war. There was genocide, people were dying of hunger. There were even reports that people had to be eating human flesh because there was no food to eat during the Biafra war. Now, and if you go online and you read discussions about the issue of Biafra, and you see people talking about Biafra, young people talking about Biafra, you see that some Igbos are still talking about this Biafra, bringing back
But
Biafra.
would you, exactly, talking about bringing back Biafra, wouldn't you think that a lot of people are dwelling in the past? Because post-Biafra war, we had a slogan, go on with one Nigeria. The oneness of Nigeria was preached. There was a lot of efforts that was put towards reintegrating and joining ties, because in his victory speech, the then President General Gowon said no vanquished and no victor, no vanquished. And looking beyond that, some of the agitators, some have said they're doing it for selfish reasons because he's not going about it the right way. There was a referendum in Scotland last year. They wanted to leave the United Kingdom. That is a civilized way of going about it. You don't have to, if you listen to Radio Biafra or you check their online portals, Facebook, social media, Mr. President is referred to as the chief terrorist. There are all sorts of unprintable names. So is this helping their cause in any way by operating this pirate radio station?
To me, I think it's complete madness to be talking about Biafra again. It's like somebody asking for the Second World War to happen again. Somebody asking for the Third World War to come again. Yes. I think Biafra is one of the greatest evil in the history of Nigeria.
But there's some genuine concerns that needs to be addressed, like marginalization of the Igbos.
Well,
alleged marginalization.
Maybe what the present administration under President Buhari should do is to look at the underlying causes, the concerns. Why are these people some of them see I know it's not all.
But on the issue of marginalization, I mean, if the government should 100% grant their request, mind you, also we have about 250 ethnic groups in Nigeria today. So at the end of the day, you will have all the ethnic groups scrambling for that recognition. But do you think that should be anything to go by? Because we are a nation. I think if the issue of marginalization is being talked about, clamored for at the federal level, mind you, we have the previous administration, we've had the state, the secretary to the state governor, coming from that particular ethnic group. You have some key positions being given to these people. So why the clamor still of marginalization? And what exactly do they want?
Remember, we have a federal character commission.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just believe that there's a particular sense of pride in saying Biafra, we're going to have our own nation.
Or nostalgia.
We're going to have our own
rather
nation.
than focusing on one Nigeria.
Exactly, and in that area. And I think that perhaps the federal government, the Nigerian nation, has not addressed the reasons, the underlying causes of the civil war. Maybe it has not been properly addressed. Maybe there has not been a systematic education and enlightenment. Biafra is not being taught in schools.
Because even the last national conference where Nigerians had gathered to discuss the fate and future of this country, it was one of the no-go areas in the national conference. And how long? There's a new generation. There's been several generations since the war ended in 1970 that need a reorientation. They need education. And like you've rightly said, it's not been taught in the school curriculum. So how long do we go about this? How long do the people know of the correct history? Because all they get is books. And when people write books, sometimes they
write their own opinion.
It's their opinion.
Exactly.
You can't, I mean, if I'm going to read the history of the Second World War, you do know that there are some key battles that took place. There are facts to back them. And would you say it's high time the federal government are they brave enough to, because they say that you'll be opening wounds. Yes.
I know that you cannot run away from the past. The past is there so that we can learn from it. I think that's one of the reasons why we learn history in schools, so that we don't, we don't fall into the gutter twice. So we must learn from history. It's very, very important. The federal government should look at Biafra. What happened? How can we prevent it? How can we make sure that an average Igbo man has national pride? That Nigeria,
in Nigeria?
Yes, in Nigeria. Nigeria comes first. Before I am a Yoruba man, I'm a Nigerian. Before I am an Igbo man, I am a Nigerian. Before I'm an Hausa man, that sense of unity should be there. That sense of patriotism.
But do you think this should be left alone to the federal government? Because I believe the state government and the local governments have a lot more to do.
Yes.
Now let's look at, because I've listened to some individuals who were clamoring for this, but after some series of discussions, I'm happy that they now have a change of heart and they're now looking at a unified Nigeria. Now, one of the things they used to say there was development, but I think Nigeria should also understand that when we talk about development, it's not and should not be limited to the federal government alone. That's why we have state governors. Now,
you think it's because of development?
Yeah, that's one of the things some of these people also hide under the guise of saying. But look at the state government. There are some eastern states, even some states, even in the Niger Delta region, and in the in the western part and the northern part of Nigeria, that are not properly developed. You still see gullies, erosions, eating away the landscape.
There's still corruption. The problems of Nigeria still exist.
God bless diseases and all of that. But at the end of the day, the same way the Eastern as well, they are suffering some of this endemic, issues. That's the same way other parts of the country. So I think it's high time Nigerians begin to look up to the state governors and their local governments to hold them accountable for development. I mean,
But
I
one
don't
of
know
the
if you have
reasons,
any
there's a
contrary
reason
opinion.
why a lot of focus, or that there's a reason why the governors get away with a lot, and they're all powerful and seen as emperors because the center gets the bulk of the revenue that comes into the country.
Exactly.
So you want to hold them accountable. That's why a lot of focus is on Abuja, and we forget those that are even closer
To the
to the people,
resources.
the
Also.
local government and the.
So that means the issue of resource control needs to be addressed. And like we
It
said
does,
before,
at all levels,
At all
yes.
levels, issues of resource control. And there are constitutional amendments to that regard.
And that's why that should lead us to the issue of the
Yeah.
national conference.
To prevent such agitation from coming
That
up
was
again.
organized by the former president, Goodluck Jonathan. It would be wise, it would be wisdom for President Buhari not to just throw that into the
They
dustbin.
can revise
Just
it
because
and
of
look at some of the
politics.
issues.
Because the likely to say, oh,
But what are some of the
PDP.
key recommendations that you could take away from the last national conference organized by the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan? Because some of the recommendations, I mean, I will find them a bit funny. You have a situation where 36 states cannot pay salaries. Some states are having difficulties paying salaries. And one of the recommendations was for the creation of more states. Is that...
Yes.
You see,
is that one of the points you would want the Buhari administration to implement?
We haven't read the document. I haven't read the document. Don't forget that the people who constituted the conference are enlightened Nigerians. The people who are also members of that assembly are also highly intelligent Nigerians. They have spent a lot of time discussing and agonizing over all these issues before, and there was a lot of arguments and debates. You understand?
But a lot of Nigerians
and then
will say
they are not
that's
gutter people. Do
particular.
you understand?
Well, that's true.
So
We understand.
if they say
the pedigree, we're not disputing
Exactly,
the pedigree.
exactly.
But why clamor for more state creation when you cannot take care of the existing states? Let's look at some of the states we have. I mean, look at many of them are crying about low IGR, that's internally generated revenue because of some of whatever factor it is that is prevailing in those areas. That's largely because some of these states, they are blessed with so much abundant resources, but because they are constitutionally limited from tapping into those resources, well, some of them also need to also focus. The issue of creation of ports, I mean, that is left solely at the discretion of the federal government. States cannot do that. So at the end of the day, you saw that...
States can't generate
exactly,
and distribute
revenue.
electricity.
They cannot do that. So at the end of the day, you see that some of these states are tight. Now, you calling for the creation of more states, don't you see that as you impoverishing the people more?
You see, you can't criticize...
I mean, can it work in this system?
You can't criticize whatever documents was produced from that conference until you have studied it. What if...
Yeah, but the recommendations are out.
The recommendations, what if...
But you want
the
president to implement it?
The creation of state is just one.
Okay, what are some of those ones you want the Buhari administration to implement? What are the key recommendations?
What if the creation of states, you understand, is something that you do later after you have done some things? Do you understand what I'm saying? So you need to study what they have done.
But that is hypothetical.
I'm not talking...
It beats logic at this point in time.
It might not... Creation of state might not be an immediate action.
Okay, let's look at the
beyond creation of state.
Let's not lose focus of this. Let's not lose focus of this discussion.
Yes.
We're talking about the Biafra. We're not talking about the
national
conference. And
but I mentioned this
the national conference, the document needs to be studied. You understand? It needs to be studied. The National Assembly should look at it. Because they should look at it, they should study it. If there's any, I'm sure all these things were addressed. The Biafra war, the marginalization. They may not talk about the Biafra war or anything, but they must have addressed the concerns of the Igbo people and the source control.
It's because of this that you have agitation.
State creation and state police. All these issues were discussed. They need to study this document and then not throw the baby with
now,
passport,
back to
you know.
the Radio Biafra. It was on air for quite some time, and it has tremendous security implications for the unity of Nigeria, because it was inciting. We could have a ripple effect, and we'll have a situation on our hands. God forbid that happens. What are some of the implications of this, and how would the federal government go after the finances and prevent such an occurrence from happening next time? Because it's quite an embarrassment to have such a pirate radio operating in your airways. I think
Radio Biafra is very, very dangerous. It's a dangerous media. It should not exist. It should not have existed. The NBC should not have allowed such things.
That's why it was illegal.
That's why it was illegal.
So they did not get the necessary permits.
No. I know you know it's illegal, but they should have blocked every loophole.
Well, the NBC have come out to say that they no longer, they have blocked, they jammed their signal, so they can no longer operate.
But people are still getting it on the internet.
But that's
somehow.
what people say. So I think right now it's the onus of proving it still exists. It's on those who say they still get the signals. If we get the signal, why don't you take a recording or something and present it to the NBC to help them also do their duties?
And we need to the individual behind it. This man that calls himself Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is in the United Kingdom. Do you think it's about time the federal government institutes an extradition treaty?
I think the man should be arrested.
He should be arrested and put back.
Because I would not 100%. It doesn't. I would not 100% go that route. I think it's more about we addressing the issues. Until we address the issues,
what
the
he did is capable of setting the country on fire.
Of course,
if you do remember the Rwandan genocide, I mean, there are people that operated the radio there, and they're in jail because radio is very powerful. It's a very powerful means of communication, and you don't toy with. There should be consequences and repercussions for your answers. You don't toy with things like that. So, would you recommend the Ministry of Justice?
Personally, I will say that all the people behind such things should be arrested, because they don't even have the interest of the Igbos at heart. If you know what happened, if you read history, you understand. If you talk to people, old people who were alive, who suffered,
some of them who are still alive, who suffered, living with
who suffered what happened, this case are still there. And they were killing the Igbos everywhere. If this thing started, they will start killing everybody. The Igbos will not be able to go to the north. They start,
exactly.
I mean, they are putting the lives really of the Igbo man in danger. And Igbo people, they hardly stay at home. They go home maybe once in a year at Christmas periods. They're either in Lagos or in Kano or in Kaduna or in Abuja doing business. They're very enterprising people. And then you set up a Radio Biafra, you sit down as if you are you are inciting other people.
I don't think
you understand. And then you are inciting other Nigerians who will now turn against the Igbos.
We'll go for a quick commercial break now, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. Our focus today is on the pirate Radio Biafra. What's this force about? Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this. You're welcome back to Cool TV, Crossfire show, and we're discussing the pirate Radio Biafra matters arising. And Mr. Yemi, before we went on the break, we were talking about this in detail. There are precedents. There are nationalist cause. The Basque wants to separate from Spain. You have the Basque in northern Spain and parts of France. You've had independence agitators in Papua New Guinea and in other parts of the world. Are there any precedents to this that, look, if you start a pirate radio station, you would eventually gain independence? And how do you address these genuine issues? Could we be matured enough to have a referendum on the future of Nigeria? Because a lot of people have said, look, this is we're just a mere geographical expression, and the British brought us together for mere administrative convenience. Are we ever going to get to that state where we negotiate our destiny and our future as a nation?
Number one, a stitch in time saves nine. Number one, you see, this, like I said before, this gentleman who started the radio, whoever, those who are behind it, they need to be brought to book. They need to be, they need to be stopped. Because they are putting all of our lives in danger. I don't want to experience another Biafra. Do you want to?
Never.
Just reading about it and watching it in the movies is okay for me. I don't want to see it again. So somebody talking about it, the president needs to, first of all, they need to cut it from the root. This was how Boko Haram started.
But we need to also
let me tell you, Biafra
something.
is worse than Boko Haram. You understand? For your second question about referendum, that was why the national conference was set up.
To address the root causes.
Exactly.
Marginalization,
all
resource
those things,
control.
all those things. That was why the national conference was set up. Like I said, it should not be thrown away. This administration should look into that document. They should study it. Whatever it is that is not good, let them remove it and then add to it and then make use of it, because Nigerians have already sat down. We will continue to talk. They can still organize another national conference. But the ones that have been done, let it not be like the Okuta, whatever. And then nothing came out of it. And then again, this one, nothing's going to come about it.
Ft.Yemi and Benga, I think this goes way beyond Radio Biafra. Because Radio Biafra, they're on one side, but also look at the average Easterner on the street. Some of them still lost that ambition in their heart. So I think it's more about the people of Nigeria, and I'm talking about all the constituents, the various ethnic groups, each individual, understanding that there's unity in diversity. And let's forget the past. Let's forget whatever it is that may have happened. Whether Nigeria was established by whatever convenience of whoever, where are we today? Let us, from today, look at the future. Because America was at this stage. But the greatest revolution America had was what the people changing their views. Let's forget what transpired, the various wars that merged us together. And that was the revolution. And look at it today. America decided to stick to each other, to put aside their opinions and differences, to get things right from that day on. And look, America is a super world power. They're forced to reckon with.
How do we apply such to Nigeria? And is the National Orientation Agency doing enough to preach oneness and unity of Nigeria? I remember, just as an aside, I remember I visited Malaysia once, and even if as a tourist I could remember Satu Malaysia was a slogan. There were billboards. So Malaysia is made up of different ethnic nationalities. You have the Chinese, you have the ethnic Malays, and the Indians, and it just kept preaching one Malaysia, Satu Malaysia, that we're all one, Indian, Chinese, regardless. But I hardly hear any commercials. I hardly hear any campaign
any
preaching
mobilization,
the oneness of Nigeria.
It's the same thing we talk about when we're talking about teaching it in schools. Why it's important for Nigeria to be. Nigeria is stronger, bigger, together. That's why we are the biggest economy in Africa. That's why we are the giant of Africa. That's why we are the biggest black nation in the world.
Yes.
Because why? Because we are together. And once we split, that greatness, it's not going to be there. Every nation respects Nigeria, takes Nigeria into account. Why? Because of the size, the population, the diversity. These are the things that we have as strengths. So we need
and even celebrated Nigerians, individuals from different parts of the country.
But for me, I think this goes beyond the federal government, state government, local government chairman, and the National Orientation Agency. That's why we have teachers. That's why we have clergymen from different parts of the country. Look at our mosques, look at our churches. You have people from different ethnic groups who go in there to worship and pray. So I think for me, this message of goodwill should extend to each individual. You go back to your own tribe or your own environment and preach the gospel of peace, because the truth
unity.
Exactly. You standing there and explain to the people, where we're coming from and why we shouldn't go that route again. So I think the issue of Radio Biafra is there. But if these issues are addressed, if we go beyond slogans and beautiful speeches of unity and we go ahead to implement this, I think that would be one of the greatest factors in curbing such an occurrence in future.
Okay. Just before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you this question. What are your suggestions on how the government can address this issue once and for all?
In 1 minute,
we
please.
don't have a reoccurrence of this in the future?
Well, I think the government should address the causes, the underlying causes of the agitation for Biafra. And then the people that are behind it, they should be stopped. They should be stopped, they should be brought to book. They should stop, they should make sure the federal government should make sure that they stop all this Masub, whatever, movement for the
Emancipation.
You know, we should put Biafra behind us. We can learn from it. We don't want a repeat of what happened at that time. It's bad for the Igbo people.
But it's bad also for the rest of Nigeria.
It's bad for the rest of the country. It was a massacre. If you read what happened.
Okay.
So government policies need to be stepped up, but religious institutions also need to focus on their duties also in preaching unity.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. That's all we can take. I would like to appreciate your
Thank you
presence
so much for joining
on.
Thank you very
joining
much.
us on the
Thank you
show.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And have a nice weekend.
And say no to violence. God bless
Yes.
you. One Nigeria.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.